Okay, this is lesson 7.4. Thanks for tuning in. And this lesson is titled Bar Graphs and Line Graphs. And we are going to talk about bar graphs and kind of talk about line graphs. But really what we're going to make sure that we know at this point, line plots we did back in lesson 7.2. Bar graphs we are going to cover today. Histograms look like bar graphs, but they're bar graphs that are made out of frequency tables. Okay, so that's a very special kind of bar graph. And technically, we are going to talk about line graphs, but the real name for them is broken line graphs. Because line graph would imply that the line just goes straight up. It doesn't curve at all. And we know that broken line graphs are like stock graphs. They look like this. Okay, and they have lots of bumps and they go up and down. So that's why it's called a broken line graph. All right, so let's get started. My helpers today are Bridget and Ariana. Say hi, guys.
Hi. Hi.
All right, and I'm not sure, I'm going to use helpers loosely, but they're here supposedly going to be helping me. Okay. All right, let's get right into it, girls. So let's make a bar graph of this data. All right, and so what we've got is we've got this chart right here. It's right out of your book. And for different amounts of money, we've got the number of students that earned $3, $4, $5, $6, or $7. So we're going to make a bar graph. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at the bottom. And we're going to put all these numbers in. We're going to put 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I can go ahead and put 8 even though we don't have any 8s. Okay? So that's going to be the amount of money, and we have to label that. So you don't have to put a ton down here, but you do need to put something down so we know what 3 through 8 represent. Okay? Let's switch colors here, and let's do a vertical axis. Okay? And the vertical axis is going to represent, in this case... Oops, I lost my page. In this case, the vertical axis is going to represent how many students made different amounts of money. All right, so let's see, what's the minimum here? 6, and it goes to the maximum of 34. So let's count by 5s. So that's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Does it make sense? Okay, and this is going to be number of students. Now, we should label at least a couple of them. We don't have to label every single one, but let's label the 10, we'll label the 20, and we'll label the 30. Okay? Let's go around so you can see. All right, so let's make the bars. So here's what I like to do when I do bar graphs. I like to make a little bar, and then I'll just fill in my bars. All right, so so let's look at the chart. 10 students made $3. So we're going to put a little bar here at 10, and we're going to draw the bar down to 3. That's all there is to it. Pretty easy, right? Yes. Okay, for 4, there's 21, so we're going to go up to 20. We're going to just a little bit higher than 21. My stylus is not cooperating here.
But that one's got a pen too.
All right. For 5, it's 34, so we're going to go all the way up to 30. We're going to go a little bit higher than 30, so it's going to be right about here at the bottom of this picture. And we're going to draw a nice big bar here. Okay, and this isn't perfect, but it's pretty close. For 6, we're only going to have 12. It's going to be a little bit taller than the first bar, but just barely. All right, so that's 12. And then finally for 7, we have 6. And 6 is going to be just a little bit higher than this bar right here. So let's make a bar, and we'll take it down. So there's your bar graph. Okay. What's missing from this bar graph? Okay, I put the bottom numbers, so this is the amount of money, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Going up the side is the number of students. All right, so at the bottom we've labeled all the different amount of money, and we've labeled the number of students going up the side. What's missing from this graph that's supposed to be on every single graph?
A title!
Oh my gosh.
A title.
Right, that's wonderful. All right, and so what this bar graph is representing is it's representing the number of students who earned different amounts of money or something like that. And we might actually know from the context that maybe this is how much money people made, I don't know, selling gift wrapping paper or something like that. So number of students who earn different amounts of money. And you can use abbreviations just as long as you have a title on your graph. Okay, now this is a bar graph. I want you to look at this closely. A bar graph, you have an axis across the bottom that identifies what it is you're graphing. It's got some measure that goes up the side, usually where you're measuring amounts or the number of things. Okay, and then you draw a bar for each one. Okay, and to read the bar graph, you just look at the bars and it tells you the data. Now, there's not super exact. If it was on graph paper, it would be much more precise. Now, there's a second type of bar graph I could have made from the same data, and it would look just like this. I'm going to go ahead and do it, and it's called a histogram. And a histogram, the only real difference is that when I do these bars, the bars go right together. Okay, so there's no gaps between them. So basically, if I just take this bar graph and I make all the bars a little bit fatter, okay, because I'm graphing the number of students that had different things, so ignore the dark green bars now, and just look at the lime green bars. This is called a histogram. It's a special kind of bar graph where it shows the number of people that pick different things. And basically, that could come right from a frequency table. Okay, so a histogram is a special kind of bar graph that comes from a frequency table. You can identify it immediately because the bars will touch each other. They'll literally run together. Okay, so we don't tend to make bar graphs that touch each other unless they're supposed to be histograms. So that's just something that we do to differentiate between a regular bar graph and this special kind that's a histogram. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. The next kind of graph that we're going to talk about is exactly a histogram. And sure enough, here, this one's pretty much done for you, and I'm going to ask you some questions about it. So over here is the data. Okay? Okay, and so what we've got some different intervals, and what we're going to do is we're going to break it down, and people are going to use batteries, and we're going to see how long their batteries last. All right? And so the intervals are from 8 to 11 hours. Okay, somehow that got cut off. And any batteries that last between 8 and 11 hours go there. So there's an 8 and a 9 and 11. They all go there. Then from 12 to 15 hours, you can see that there's 4 different numbers that fit in there. So there we go. Okay, focus. All right, so right here is a frequency table from back in lesson 7.2. Okay, and then if I want to take that frequency table and make it into a histogram, each of these intervals of hours becomes one of the bars, so that goes at the bottom. Okay, and the number of times, the frequency, let's circle that in red, the frequency goes right here on the y-axis. And so essentially this is a bar graph. Notice that, remember what I said about the histogram? See how the bars run together? All right, suppose you look at this. Can you find the median from this? Or the minimum or the maximum?
Yes.
All right, so I agree. We can find the minimum. All right, now we don't know the exact minimum, but we know it's going to be somewhere in that first bar, somewhere from 8 to 11. If I look back at the original data, I could see that it was 8. But it's somewhere from 8 to 11. And the maximum is somewhere in this bar right here, right? The 20 to 23. Okay. Can I figure out the median? Well, I can. It's a little hard, but look at this. Okay, I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but I can at least figure out where the median is. Because look right here. See this bar right here? That was 3 people. Okay? This bar over here was also 3 people, wasn't it? So if I cross out the highest and the lowest, the highest, the lowest, the highest, the lowest, it's going to cross out all 3 of the numbers that make up that bar and all 3 of the numbers that make up this bar, right?
Yes.
Okay, now this one is 4 and this one's 2. So these 2 will cancel the top 2 over here. And so the median has to be somewhere in there. Okay? And actually, I crossed out the wrong part. I should have crossed out the bottom. So the median is actually going to be right up here. So it's going to be one of the top 2 in that second interval, that 12 to 15 interval. So if I look back at the original data right here, the 12 and the 14 got canceled out, so it's the 2 15s. And so the median will be right in between 15 and 15. Well, that's pretty easy. It's 15, right? Okay? So again, you have to be able to look at a bar graph and be able to answer questions about it, but you also have to be able to take data and make a bar graph or a histogram. Okay? Pretty straightforward. All right, let's go to the next data. And what I want to do for this one is let's go ahead and make this one into a broken line graph. So it's going to be just like the bar graph. Down here at the bottom, we're going to label, usually it's the top, the first piece of data. So we're going to label the weeks down here. Okay, we're going to just label them 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Up the side, we're obviously going to do the other thing, which is going to be the number of tickets sold. And again, look at your highest and smallest values. Okay, this one goes from 22 to 46. So let's count by tens. 10, 20, 30, 40. And we've got to go all the way up to 46, so we're just going to extend this up a little bit more, and that'll be 50. So let's go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Agreed?
Agreed.
All right, now we're going to make, this one's going to be a broken line graph. So what we're going to do this time is we're just going to plot points. So at week 1, we sold 22 tickets, so we're going to put a dot right there at 22. Okay? At week 2, we sold 35 tickets, so we're going to put a dot right there at 35. At week 3, we sold 33, so it's down very slightly. Okay? And at week 4, it's 46, it's way up here. Now connect the dots with straight lines, or straight line segments. Okay, and that's my graph. This is called a broken line graph, and again, what are we looking at here? We're looking at the number of tickets sold each week, right? And that's called the what? What is this?
The title.
Right, the title. All graphs need a title.
Yeah.
Okay. That's basically it, guys.
Really?
So now line plots, don't get confused between, now the book doesn't say broken line graph, it'll just say line graph. Really, what we drew here is a broken line graph. And I like putting the word broken in because first of all, it's more accurate. Second of all, I don't want you to get line graphs confused with line plots. Line plots were the ones where we did the number lines and we just stacked up all the X's, remember? They looked like little, kind of like histograms or bar graphs.
Yeah.
Okay.
But with X's.
With X's, exactly. So that instead of bars being little boxes, they were just X's stacked on top of each other. Otherwise, it looked like a bar graph.
Yeah.
Okay, that's called a line plot. Totally different thing than a line graph. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so what we're going to do tomorrow in class is we're going to practice making these different kinds of graphs. So we're going to make bar graphs, we're going to make broken line graphs, and we're going to make histograms. Okay, and histogram is the one that isn't really mentioned in the title of the chapter, so that would probably be a very good daily quiz question. Okay? All right, well, ladies, thanks for coming down. You have already watched the video. The rest of you, thanks for watching, and we will practice in class tomorrow.
Bye. Bye.